Sunday Live here with the Average Joe Sports Show. We're all packed up for camping season. That's Gary Sharp, Bill Doleman, Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt. No broken glass this morning, just all sorts of intrigue and question marks as Big Red football gets underway tomorrow. Guys, how we feeling? How we doing? Man, made it through another offseason. I know a ton of camp storylines we'll get to, but man, it feels good that we're right on the doorstep of some meaningful action. We got through talking season. Now it's tackling season. Are we feeling that?
The summer has flown by. I don't know. Maybe as you get older, it just – but it seems like, like the Big Ten baseball championship wasn't too long ago. Now all of a sudden it's time for practice to start tomorrow.
Yeah, you blink and
what the hell happened?
Yeah, it always flies by, but it's been a quicker summer than most. I totally believe that.
It helps when you spend 2 weeks in Europe, right?
Wow, someone's pissy. Elijah's like, summer break, what are you talking about?
He's been sitting in that chamber since the Big Ten baseball season.
Since July 3rd. Wow, dude! Would we need to sidebar this, or are we just gonna hammer away in the public spectrum? Listen, was it 2 weeks ago from Munich? I did a show, so I did do a little work over there.
No, and I'm happy. I'm glad you got that opportunity to get over there. I am looking. This is a total aside.
Just wishing you would have stayed. One of those things.
No, but post football season, I found a hell of a deal on a flight from Omaha to Tokyo. Not direct.
You were talking about that.
Yeah. Can you believe $700? I shouldn't put it out there because people are going to start looking into it and they're going to take my seat. But $700 round trip, Omaha to Tokyo.
Hey, it's cheap. Like I ran across a flight to Amsterdam. Round trip for $460. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The Average Joe Road Show from a coffee.
I mean, people aren't coming to our country. They would like us to come to their country.
Well, did you see just a couple weeks ago? It was Afghanistan who was calling for American tourists to come see the country.
I'm good.
Yeah, I think I'm good too.
Unfortunately, that could be an adventure. The prices on flights were like $1,500. That's not anything I want to spend to go to freaking Afghanistan. But
didn't they put out a promotional video for that too?
Yeah. I will say the promotional video, I think I was their target audience and it worked. It did put it.
Hey, where's the oddest place you watched the Nebraska-Michigan game? Oh, in a bar in Afghanistan.
There was a Husker bar.
Next to a giant hookah.
We found a big red bar out there, and you and all alumni got together and watched the game.
But I was wondering, in February, do you think there's any Husker-themed bars in Japan for Keisei Tominaga to watch Husker basketball games?
If I'm Keisei, I open my own.
For people like me.
Yeah, you know what? I bet if you reached out to his family, they might give you some tips or be a tour guide.
Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, maybe somebody ought to sell the Husker Athletic International package. Like all of the international student athletes that are at Nebraska, from Germany to Japan to Iceland, like you could buy packages to go see their homeland.
Benefiting 1890.
Yes. Hey, you want to go see where Leo Curtis grew up? That goes directly to Leo. Have a great time over there. You might even meet Leo's parents and see where he shot his first basketball.
You can see if Richard Van Polgeest is still riding around on Pee Wee Herman's bicycle in the Netherlands.
That's funny. The only man to get banned from Old Country Buffet.
Hey, Archie Wilson has a big year. Does it help tourism from Nebraska to Australia? People are asking on the chat.
People swear that Australia's like bucket list, got to go do it. Never been, obviously, but people rave about Australia. One of our tour guides in Europe was from Australia, and she was fantastic. She knew a ton about World War II history. Obviously, that's what she had studied for, but she was great. And then she had that Australian twang to her, obviously, which was good.
I'm gonna toot my own horn here for a second. I was a little bit bored at work last night, and I took a World War II history quiz. 48 out of 50.
Good.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, let's talk a little history with Nebraska. Guys, Bill and Gary specifically, you guys have been covering the program for a lot of years, and you've had access to the program, unlike me and Elijah. And does this year feel at all like a past year to you? Is there any parallels at all, or is this thing just completely it's on its own side because of year 3 rule and just what we're dealing with in the world of college football now with portal and payments and all of that stuff?
Can I take it a slightly different direction? Not
Sure.
to say that there's a direct parallel, but I do feel like the offseason chatter, this kind of the vibe you're getting from the team feels closer to some of the Pelini years, which is there's not bravado. There's not guys in the offseason going talking up how great they're going to be. It's just that quiet feeling. And I felt it at Big Ten Media Days that the guys there felt like they belonged. And you bring those guys for a reason because they're supposed to represent the team culture and the guys that you have within that team. But I just felt like from Big Ten Media Days, there was that feeling of, hey, we're not going to go in and toot our own horn. We're not going to talk about how great Nebraska is. We're going to go answer the questions. But the vibe just felt to me like a team that felt like they belonged in the Big Ten. And I don't think I've felt that at Media Days in a couple of years now.
Well, they certainly were the best dressed team there. I will say that. I'm trying to think, it's not like anything during the run in the 90s, but there is kind of a sense that there's a pressure on the program that I don't think they're talking about, but it reminds me a little bit of post 91, 92.
Okay.
Now, 91 ended, horrifically. And there was pressure on Tom Osborne. You better change things or something's going to get changed for you. And so as last season ended on an up note, right, with the win in the bowl game, and 91 ended disastrously against Oklahoma and Georgia Tech, if I remember the years correctly.
And Colorado.
Right. So there was a certain pressure that this better be good.
Mm-hmm.
And as good as people are feeling about, them being, as Elijah says, well, we feel like we belong in the Big Ten now, and we're talking CFP and all that, and they believe that this better be good, right? And Tom made dramatic changes in the strength and nutrition and all of that. It was a precursor to the Ed Stewart move. I think that's the year Tommy was recruited as a freshman, and all of that kind of helped out, but there was that element of, okay, you got to win. And I'm not talking about Riley and Callahan or any of those guys. I'm going back in time to a time when you this better be good, or we're going to have some changes again.
Yeah, I to add to what you said, Bill, I think there's not only to get it right, also just to start being the program that you kind of should be, and that is winning football games consistently and being relevant week after week. I also think there's a financial aspect to this season. I mean, there's a lot riding on Nebraska making this pop this year. I mean, you have a major stadium project that is ahead of you. You have people that want to financially support the program, but they just want to be validated that their belief is like real on the field. So I think those two tie-ins, I would say, and I think it's a little bit different because of the coordinators. I think the coordinators changed the conversation if you want to compare it to the past. I think 2021, coming off the COVID year, there was a lot of optimism going into that year for Scott. You had the first year, then you had the second year, then you had COVID, and you're like, okay, finally, you still got Adrian. Okay, this is going to be the year that it's finally going to happen. And then you had the rug pulled out from under you, right away. I don't know. I think this year the vibe is different because who your OC is and that they fix special teams. So if you're thinking, okay, they won 6 games last year, can they make a 2-win jump? Not everybody's going to be Indiana and Arizona State where they make a 7-win jump. But if Nebraska is going to make a 2 or 3-win jump, is it just because of the talent? And then you go, whoa, they're still really young, or is it because of things they fixed with coaching from last year? And I think that's where probably I believe a lot of the optimism is they made changes in key positions on their staff that they can't be worse, right? There's no way they can take a step back, like just offensive befuddlement or just special teams brutality.
See, the way you put it with some of those monster jumps that, Nebraska's fan base looks at an Arizona State and an Indiana and is like, dude, why can't that be Nebraska? But the coordinator part of it does give you confidence. I think if you're a Nebraska fan, gives you a different look for sure with Matt Rule and how you can delegate, and you're delegating to proven entities, guys that have went out and done it. And I think that comfort's real. And I think the accountability part of it. I mean, you have two guys in Eckler and Dana that aren't going to jack around. You're not doing your job. Doesn't matter how many zeros are on your NIL check. You're going to get to watch. So that to me is there's no fear of making changes with who's playing. And that is important.
Did we ever get around yesterday to, in case of emergency, break glass?
It was talked about a little bit.
Yeah, we started the show with that, but if there was something and other than 15 going down with a season-ending type injury.
I said Emmett is
we did talk about
kind of like 1B for
like Gary knocking on wood.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we probably got pretty lucky last year that he played all 13, that he started all 13. Yeah, that would be that scenario, Bill. Because I don't know.
Do we want to go there though? This day one before camp?
I don't. Maybe not. It's important for Dylan to be healthy, and I think he's got his body in shape where he can handle the rigors of 13 games or at least 12 regular season games. I also think the mental part of it, because he hit the wall last year. He was a freshman, got frustrated, hit the wall. The backup quarterback will be very intriguing during camp, because what if a guy that didn't play football last year at Purdue transfers and he's not at least third on the depth chart? Now you're looking at a couple of years where he may not play much football. And then on the other hand, whoa, do they have something in TJ Lateef that, he's not going to redshirt, he's going to be next in line? Or is Gramstad just your safe Andrew Bunch option if your main quarterback goes down?
Listen, I don't look at Coach Holgerson's personality. He doesn't overload trying to show how smart he is, but his brilliance is in motivation and development. And whoever's ready will play for sure. But I just have a hard time. This is going to sound awful from a measurables and talent standpoint. Gramstad might be just a winner, right? Kind of a Joe Gans type dude, where Gans was super talented and was overlooked by the staff and then got a shot. Gramstad may be the most trusted, and right now he is the most trusted behind Dylan. But Lateef, I mean, we've seen glimpses. Marcos, I don't think you bring that guy in if you don't think he can play. I mean, he's a guy that you went after initially, so you like some of his traits. Who's going to be ready, though, God forbid, if that moment comes for Husker football?
And I know we're going to talk about it, but if Dylan, God forbid, as Schmidt says, were to go down for any prolonged stretch of time, is that season down the tubes? Like, no offense to the backup quarterbacks, but
I don't think you can play it that way. I don't think you can play it
that way, but the expectations change significantly for this season, right? Like, I know it'll be a talking point during fall camp, but no matter who that guy is, if it is a backup coming in to replace Dylan Raiola for a prolonged stretch of time, my expectations, and I think probably internally some internal expectations would change as well, where it goes from, they're talking, we want to win more games than we lose and make a college football playoff. That's what Dylan said to us whenever we chatted with him the other day. Like, that changes a little bit if it is the backup quarterback. And I think it's the only position anywhere, even if Emmett goes down, like, the expectations don't change, but Dylan Raiola is the guy that you look to on offense. He's the leader. He's the reason why you bring in transfers like Isaiah Hunter and Dane Key. I mean, I know they're position coaches here, but they want to come play with a 5-star quarterback. It's the reason why you can go be urgent in the portal and guys will listen to you. Dylan Raiola is the reason why. And if he goes down for a prolonged stretch of time, it changes everything for this season.
Well, you go from that 10-2, 9-3, worst case 8-4. If you're playing with a backup at quarterback or running back, or pick somebody you think's vital. Okay, it matters clearly, and then I think a good portion of the fan base would appreciate this team getting to a bowl game, and if they were able to eke out 7 or an 8. I mean, what you haven't seen for years at Nebraska is maximizing talent, and if you got to overcome a major injury and you still got your way to a significant win, or kind of a watershed win with a backup in. I mean, I think Nebraska fans will absolutely appreciate the team and the coaching getting it done despite getting a bad hand dealt to them.
But isn't that why you go and you get a portal guy and a big-time high school guy?
Yep.
So that he plays the most important position, and he's one of, if not the best player on your roster. But if that's going to completely derail your season, that's why I think it's an interesting battle. What do the reps look like? Because Dylan will get the majority of reps at number 1, and he should. But does anybody sneak in a couple at number 1? Does what do the battle for number 2 look like? So if by chance, even if it's not, like a injury with an Indiana quarterback, where he has to miss a game and they have a backup that comes in and, they still keep moving forward, but maybe it's dinged up during a game. Do you have a guy prepared that he can come off the bench and he's going to be okay? He won't be on that level, but he still is not going to hurt you, where it's like, okay, now we're cratering, the season is over. So I think that's why you build your quarterback room up like that. But you got to keep Dylan upright, and Dylan's got to be smart. I think Dylan, for the most part last year, was smart in avoiding like that crushing hit. And a year later, he'll be smarter in taking care of his body and everything else. And I mean, he'll protect him a little bit better. Or when he needs to get out of bounds or go down, he'll go down and not get, absolutely crushed.
But isn't Marcus Davila a 4-star quarterback?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So if you have a 4-star in your room, and granted, he played at Purdue, which had a dismal season last year and was completely wayward. So he probably hasn't had quality college play. I don't think you just come to Nebraska to collect a check if you're a 4-star guy. And what's Glenn Thomas's job? And we talk so much about Dana Holgorsen. I would think if you're Glenn Thomas and you're the quarterback's coach and you got a 5-star and a 4-star in your room, and you have the NAIA Player of the Year from a couple of years ago, nice story, but I would hope that Marcus Davila was a 4-star for a reason. And you know how much I love recruiting, but if he's not
beat out the NAIA guy,
you would hope a 4-star from Texas, was pretty good coming out of school, and not just, well, let's slap a star, get extra couple stars on him, and then send him off, and we'll forget about the dude. I would think that he has some ability to be a quality, backup quarterback. And TJ Lateef, I think, was a 4-star guy too. So you would hope that, the room has some talent in it, that it's not going back to the days of, Tom Haas and Monte Cristo, and
I loved me some Tom Haas, baby.
Yeah, I mean,
Pride of Aurora.
Yes.
Yep, there were guys
Citrus
there were guys who were, backups that, had one day in the sun, Matt Turman, but you couldn't go a whole season with them. But you would hope with Marcus Davila, if something were to happen to Dylan Raiola, that you have quality in that room already.
It should be noted here, James also brings up the point. And he says Dana tried recruiting him to Houston. I mean, it was more than that. Yeah. Dana essentially had him flipped from Purdue, and then Dana gets popped at the end of the season, and now Davila's kind of in this weird spot where he was about to flip. I think Purdue knew he was about to flip, and then, oh, wait, no, never mind. I can't go to Houston.
Just kidding.
I'm stuck at Purdue now. So it was a weird year one for him. I'm pretty much treating this like a freshman season for him with the stylistic change that he's getting. That's kind of why I have a little bit of hesitation. Like, yeah, Dana's got a great eye for quarterbacks, but he essentially had a wasted season in West Lafayette where he comes in and he had some.
He's not the only one.
I would be encouraged. I would be encouraged if two guys that just showed up in the last year after the 24 season were one of the number 2 quarterbacks.
Let's get some of our shout outs going here on the Sunday live of the Average Joe Sports Show. Like and subscribe. We encourage you to do that on YouTube, also on Twitter, AJ Sports Radio, AJ Sports Pod. Corn Raider says, damn, it's hot. He was in first. He was in before us. God love you, Corn Raider. James says it's humid too. Coach Brandon here, Andrew in. And 109 in the truck is what Coach Brandon said yesterday down in Kansas. Chris is in 10:35-ish. Thanks for all the shows. Excited for the next month. Appreciate that, James. Crew is in. Says, good morning, my beautiful men. Crew, let me know if you're going to the gym later, partner.
Well, hello.
I don't know if it's that JB, but a JB says, morning, gentlemen. David in. Casper is here from South Texas. Vic in from Denver. Andrew checking in. You have Jeff Snitley, part of the Boulder Peace Treaty, is here. Captain said, I would like to thank the AJSS for providing your people, aka us, on YouTube 7 days a week. A place to kick it. Appreciate you.
Oh, just wait till football season. It's going to kick off in dramatic fashion where we get pregame and postgame, and then Sunday, the day after reaction pod. Oh, baby, it's coming.
We may have to huddle up Sharpie and Bill and Elijah from a diner somewhere.
Before the season?
Well, that or just a Sunday post game with biscuits and gravy and pancakes and all the fixins
and Bloody Marys.
I buried the lead. Elijah's like, yeah, we need alcohol.
I think the bottom part of the panel are more Virginia's Cafe. The top part of the panel is more like Green Gateau. So we'd have to meet somewhere in the middle.
Wow. I love both.
So somewhere in the middle is like an Engine House Cafe. Yeah, Engine House Cafe.
I like that.
In the middle. That's a good spot. A little small for the seating, but it's intimate for a podcast, could work.
God, if only the Village Inn existed on O Street.
Man, that building was on fire not long ago either. I mean, as well. So
back in the day, I was on fire there too one night.
Sharp. I love that. Pat is in. Pat, good to have you. More comments on the way. Vincent is here. When it comes to an earlier discussion, point of factor in 2 wins for hiring, says he factors in 2 wins for hiring Eckler and at least 1 for Dana. Do you think both those guys are worth 3 wins, Gary? I mean, what's a fair jump? I mean, you're at 7-6 last year.
Well, so I keep, again, I brought up Indiana and Arizona State. And if you look at Indiana, major influx of talent, but they also scored 46 points a game and they had the number 2 defense. So that helped them make a big jump. They also had a fairly manageable schedule. So they make the jump of 7 wins. I kind of start looking at Illinois' jump from 23 to 24, where they won 5 games in 23. They won 9 in the regular season last year. They had a returning quarterback. They had some pretty good wide receivers. They had guys that had played a little bit in 23. We're going to play more in 24. Because I've envisioned, in my mind, I see the hype around Illinois this year being the hype around Nebraska next year. Okay. Where people are like, that's the 4th team. And, some will be like, I don't know. But most people will be like, that's the 4th team. So is that the kind of jump? The thing about Eckler, and this really shows you what a great hire it was for Nebraska and how terrible Nebraska was at special teams the last 2 years. We don't know who the kicker is going to be. We think. We don't know who the punter is going to be. We think. We're not really sure on who the returners are going to be. But the fact that Mike Eckler is in charge, we go, that's got to be worth 2 wins. Now, is that the Eckler factor, or is that just Nebraska can't be as bad? I tend to believe it's Mike Eckler and a commitment to special teams where they will not let things slide. So the unknowns, there's like great unknowns on special teams, but because of the guy that's in charge, we're like, you know what? They're going to be better. That could be worth 2 wins. And I nod my head and go, yeah, you're right. That's how good he is.
Well, one of my break glass in case of emergency scenarios is if the dude they brought in for the long snapper, is it Kevin Gallick or Gaelic?
Gaelic.
Like if Nebraska loses it's the long snapper that it brought in, and the previous coach to Matt Rule did bring in some transfers who were solid at the long snapper position, and we learned through that. Through those last couple of seasons, how important that is. If Nebraska has to go back to having auditions weekly for somebody who can be a long snapper, it could be a long season again for special teams, regardless of what Mike Eckler brings to the table. Because if you can't get the ball back to the holder or to the punter in a good, timely fashion, cleanly, your special teams are going to be a disaster in terms of field position and giving up points. So to me, they better have gotten that spot on the field right. Either that or you turn Heinrich Harburg into a long snapper and let him throw the ball between his legs. But I think it's Mike Eckler is going to be the definition of returning to a commitment to special teams, I think. I don't think he just takes it as this is just a job. I think he's one of the loudest voices in the rooms. He's one of the biggest personalities on that staff. And as a result, it's going to be offense, defense, and special teams, not offense, defense, and special teams.
Yeah.
There's a demand, absolute demand.
I think I think a good sign. How many times 2 years ago did we mention the name Marco Ortiz?
Hardly ever.
Yeah.
And that was a good thing.
Right.
I mean, he was the long snapper and no one talked about him until he was gone. I hope that's the case this year.
Yeah, they did 2 years in a row. They had Ortiz, and there was another dude they brought in for 1 year, like from Georgetown or something. And maybe that was Ortiz, but it was a solid position, right? And Nebraska got it done. So anyway,
James lets us know that the punter will be from down under.
be the koala.
I'm not sure that nickname's going to stick.
No. Well, hold on a minute.
Is that a good name?
Yeah, that's the question. Would you object to that as
I prefer the kangaroo because kangaroos actually kick, you know?
I prefer the Fosters.
Yeah, right.
Australian for punter.
Australian for hangover. Yes.
But look at this. Isn't this wild though? You know, there's a lot of ifs on this roster that some will be cleared up in the next like 4 weeks. Some won't be cleared up until the middle of the year. There are a lot of like ifs on or unknowns on special teams, but it's the power of Mike Eckler, man. I can't wait. This is going to be a great experience of how this is going to be different because, I mean, yeah, the dingo. I don't know if that's something that'll roll off the tongue of whoever's doing the game for ESPN. And out comes the dingo.
Snap. The dingo is ready to put it inside the 4.
Oh, here's a good question. Do we see the dingo, the koala, the Foster, whatever? Do we see him punt with both feet this year?
Well, if he's a kangaroo, he could do both at the same time. But
that was the rumor coming in, was that he's right-footed, but he can kick with both. Do we see him directionally, depending on where they are on the side of the field, go punt with both feet?
Well,
not at the same time.
There's a long history of Australian toughness, right? Going all the way back to Crocodile Dundee, where it's not just that he's going to kick the ball. He may knock the opponent's return man's head off.
Yeah. So can I ask a question about this? Because we're all still scarred about a misdirected punt in East Lansing. Do you have to tell the Australian punter the opposite? Yeah.
Wow.
I think that's the first question for Eckler when he's available.
Eck will seethe and burn a hole through you. Just
Hey, Mike Eckler is special. I mean, he's the guy that, you know, he during the spring to get his guys fired up, because he also helped. He dabbled a little bit coaching linebackers, which I would like to see him help. I mean, Dvorak is already a good position coach. Man, if you got a little bit of Eckler coaching linebackers as well, but Eckler's the guy during spring, and I told the story back in the spring. The one day it looked like that he showed up and walked out of the coal mine. Like he'd been working in either Kentucky or West Virginia. And he's like, oh man, we got practice today. He put eye black on, and then it just turned into a mess. I mean, how do you not want to be on the special teams with that guy coaching you?
Eck had the Ultimate Warrior tribute going for a lot of years, all the way back to the K-State era.
Yeah, I do hope though they do utilize him and his knowledge of linebackers, because I think that would be a great addition as well. But I know that they've devoted more periods and time to special teams.
I want to get your take, fellas, on Nebraska's portal edition. See, I kid you not. Well done. And the Mohawk.
God,
those shoulder
the
pads.
Mohawk anymore.
My God. I think the last Mohawk I remember was old Ben Butenbach. He had a kind of a road warrior Mohawk going when he played linebacker at Nebraska.
Hey, before some of those guys left on Bo's original staff, he had a very eccentric staff.
Yeah,
but we had some dudes on that defensive side of the football that could coach, man.
Mm-hmm. No, he had a really good initial staff, and then you look at tour. I mean, from KU to Indiana to USC to Georgia to coaching linebackers and special teams. With Nebraska's additions, we've hit on Indiana a lot over the summer months because of what they did and how they were pretty seamless. The James Madison 40 that made their way to the Big Ten and performed well. Nebraska's approach, they kind of did a hodgepodge. They went and got guys out of other major P4 programs, but they also went and got, guys from Georgia Southern, or they went and got guys from, a smaller school, hoping that they'll have that chip on their shoulder and perform well. I like that adjustment for Nebraska. You just try and go find players. If they fit and you like their film, you think they can translate, you go get them. And Nebraska went and did that. But it's been more of a mix with Nebraska and the direction they went with some of the smaller Georgia Southern type schools that they went to bring in. Do you think that'll hit? Do you worry about that hitting if you're looking at Nebraska's team?
I think back to last year, I was so intrigued to see Bly Hill because he was coming from St. Francis. I mean, that's a hell of a jump. They had success with, and this is pre-NIL, I guess, but Samari Torrey coming from Montana and making that move. And so, and it was really good. So I think you always hope that, you're going to have that hit. The guy's just a great football player. His first stop happened to be at a smaller school. Maybe he did not have the physical characteristics you're looking. He just grew into the role, grew into the game. And so and Bly Hill eventually came back last year and played a couple of games, but I don't think we ever saw what he could have been because they had high hopes for him in the spring, and then he gets hurt same day or same series as Demetrius Bell. But that I just was really intrigued by how well he would adjust going from St. Francis to Nebraska. So I have that same question with Georgia Southern, East Tennessee State Tech, or whatever hyphenated school Elijah mentioned yesterday, Idaho, all of those guys. Sometimes it's just a matter of your body maturing into the kind of player that fits the system that he wouldn't have done it 2 years ago when he was coming out of high school.
Another one of those guys is Andrew Marshall, who could end up starting. You look at Nebraska's haul out of the portal. I mean, are we going to have, before the year is over, 8, 9, 10 of those guys that are starters. And a
Good.
lot of those guys could be day one starters, because Andrew Marshall out of Idaho, you look at him and go, okay. I look at who he played for. His head coach is now the head coach at New Mexico. His defensive coordinator, who he really picked the brain of Nebraska, and if that was the right place for him, Dan Jackson, the pride of Omaha Burke, is the head coach at South Dakota State. So they got guys that played in really good programs. I mean, Watson Trent came from playing for Clay Helton.
Yeah.
So it's like Nebraska did their due diligence on guys that, if you're wondering, are they going to be able to make the jump? They're like, you know what? They're ballers. They can play. But I think this portal haul, it's not going to be like guys that are just sitting on the sidelines.
No.
They're going to be starting against Cincinnati.
It was the theme I used this offseason for Nebraska a couple weeks ago. I can't remember if it was on this show or a midweek show, was urgency. There was so much urgency both with the coaching hires and out of the portal this season, where you weren't looking for guys. And Matt Rule talked about it when he first showed up to Nebraska, where his portal plan was, hey, I want to find guys that still have 3-4 years left to play. We see the potential. We're going to bring those guys into the program and give them the Matt Rule, the Nebraska way. It's not that this season. There was a complete shift in the portal philosophy this year, where you go get yourself 2 ready-made starters at wide receiver in Isaiah Hunter and Dane Key. You go get yourself 2 ready-made starters in the offensive line with Elijah Pritchett and Rocco Spindler. You get yourself a guy that's going to be competing for snaps, if not starting, at Andrew Marshall at corner. A guy Marquez Watson Trent that was, defensive player of the year down in his conference and is likely going to step into snaps. So many guys that you went in and you paid some money to, but you had that sense of urgency to say, we have a hole. We want to fill that hole because we want to be great next year.
And some of those guys too, it may not be a matter of the, physically maturing. Maybe they just couldn't get into the school that they wanted to go to. It's not much different than the junior college route. Dude. And that's what college sports is becoming. They talk about it during the NCAA basketball tournament. They talked about all the way through this last one, players who were at the Cinderella school impressing somebody during the tournament, and next year we'll see them, playing at Michigan or UCLA or whatever, because they had 2 or 3 years to develop at a lower level mid-major, and now they're ready to play. But maybe academically they didn't get in. They went to a school where the standards were a little more lenient, shall we say. But it's not much different than the junior college route that Levante David, Randy Gregory, Mike Rozier. Players have gone that route, and once they got the books in order, the body was ready, and they found a place that's going to give them the bag now.
Guys, a couple of names I want to throw out with you're waiting to see successful seasons and stay healthy, not necessarily an injury issue, but just, guy that's taken some time to develop. Take on Quinn Clark, Mac Markway, 2 guys on the offensive side of the football that, Markway coming back from a knee injury, but played a ton during his freshman year at LSU. You got Clark. We know what type of athlete he is and what kind of impact they can make on the offensive side. And then on a defensive note, what did your guys' thought on a kid we all have covered and watched, and he's battled back from injury, Mav Noonan, at that jack spot? It's not a situation where Mav's got to go in and start, but you look at some of the upside and the projection for him out of high school is he's a guy that could be pretty impressive, Sharpie, as a pass rusher. That usage this season for Nebraska.
Yeah, let me take I'll do Quinn Clark. First of all, we know his dad is one of the more underappreciated great running backs at Nebraska and Ken. And it's like, this is why I'm excited about camp and the first part of the season, where if Nebraska takes care of business, especially in week 2 and 3, some of these guys will get to get more run and we'll get to actually see them, because last year we heard whispers about this incredible athlete, Quinn Clark. He's 6'5", 210, and we never really got to see him. And then Rule, remember, I always look at Rule's comments that they're very intentional. He just doesn't throw things out there. And he brought him up in November. The season is kind of winding down, and they're talking about a role down the road for Quinn Clark, or a role currently. He's in a crowded room, so he's not going to break into the top 3, but I can't wait to see him. because people have said, wait till you see him play. He just needs to play more football, needs to get his body right, needs to play against higher level competition. But if I'm 6'5", 210, and I got a little Kenny Clark DNA in me, I can't wait to watch Quinn Clark. And I'm telling you, that is an ideal size to play wide receiver in this offense, 6'5", 210. So he's a guy that I really hope I hear his name a bit during fall camp.
And I'm not sure, did you guys see the video posted? I think it was Harper Murray of some Husker football players going and playing volleyball. And he jumped off the screen at me for just how high above the net he could get. I was like, holy cow. If football doesn't work out for him, he could be a pro volleyball player. It was impressive.
Well, he was correct me if I'm wrong, guys, wasn't in
Montana?
Yeah, Montana. He was a track star.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's one of the questions about him, though. And you mentioned it. Did he play against high-level competition? Maybe he did. I'm not well-versed on the high school football scene in the state of Montana, but I'm guessing it's probably not the same level of competition, let's say Cortez Mills played against down in Florida, or Ja'Cory Barney, where you can come out of high school and probably be ready-made for a significant impact at the college level. So maybe it was best for Clark to A, get body right, and B, get used to, just the speed and practice every day of the guys that you're going against, and going against an experienced, some secondary guys that are going to challenge you Monday through Friday, and then you watch and observe on Saturday. So he probably benefited from a year off that he did not want to have to take. I think that would have been beneficial for Carter Nelson. Yeah, we got a lot of attention on Carter Nelson last year, in the recruiting process, because he's a Nebraska kid, and God loved Nebraska high school football, but it was Ainsworth. Mm-hmm. And again, I go back to a little different than what some of those guys from down south are bringing to the table. And maybe he would have been, benefited from taking a complete year off. Then he gets hurt, and we all know the story with Carter Nelson. But I'm just going to throw in a really hopeful season for Maverick Noonan in whatever way it might be. I hope he's not coming in thinking he has to be an impact player. You're coming off of a major knee injury. Look, he's got the weight of the name on him. His dad, his late uncle, great players at Nebraska. Danny Tough as hell when he played, one of the great middle guards in Nebraska history. So I hope his body's right. I hope he hasn't lost his step. And I hope he can be, maybe develop into, remember last year, like Willis McGahee came on the last 4 to 6 games of the season and became an impact player. Maybe that's what's on the docket this season for a guy like Maverick Noonan, because he's tougher than hell, and he's going to wear the M with pride. So that's a guy that I'm really rooting for, and you hope it's not a reoccurring theme for him, that injuries are part of the story going forward. Like a Teddy Prohaska or something like that. So that's a guy I'm looking forward to seeing play.
Another guy that has tried to battle back from injury, and Demetrius Bell, right? The kid out of Tennessee at wide receiver. I mean, it's a loaded room, and Nebraska's went out the last 2 years and got portal targets at wide receiver. You look at Hunter and you look at Key for sure, but you wonder where Bell could fit into the mix with his size and speed and athleticism. And just it's too bad these guys get taken away from, physically doing what they've learned on offense. You just don't get the reps in because of the injury. And then you've got the mental part. Do you trust coming back? It takes some guys longer than others to really trust their bodies back to normal. But Bell's a guy that got hurt in that spring game, fellas.
Yeah. His body's okay. Yeah. He's probably put on about 20 pounds of muscle. I mean, if you look at him, I don't want this to sound harsh, but isn't this how a real football program's supposed to work? The train just keeps moving.
It is.
It sucks that Maverick has been limited to only 3 games in his career. And maybe this year they can find a limited role as just a situational pass rusher. It sucked that Bell got hurt and he wasn't able to come back. He had to miss the entire year. But the train keeps moving, that when guys are finally healthy, there's not spots there for them because they have recruited over them.
You're not dependent.
Yeah. I think another part of this discussion, because, another guy to throw into the conversation is Tristan Alvano. There's going to be guys that this is now their third year in the program that are they going to get squeezed out? But, you don't want Rule's first recruiting class to completely fall apart. You had to come in and you had to scramble and you had to keep guys and then quickly add guys that were high school guys. You don't want it to completely disappear. And some of these guys we've mentioned were in that class. Maverick was the anchor of that class.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why there's good competition. And, when you're down to 105, or eventually when you get to 105, you can't make a lot of mistakes, but there's going to be like the Bells of the world, even if they're not a frontline guy, can they find a role? Like I would love for Maverick to find a role, even if it's 5 snaps a game, but it's like, hey, why you're on the field, go get the quarterback.
Well, as you go back and look, and you mentioned, Gary, that first recruiting class from Rule, we know attrition is a given in today's college football, but you go through some of these names. Malachi Coleman, no longer here, is at Minnesota. Princewell, no longer here. Cam Linhart is a guy who's expected to start. That's 1 of 3 for now. Jaden Doss, we just learned he's on his way out the door. Then you have Riley Van Poppel, who is expected to start. Jeremiah Charles, we'll see what this season looks like for him. Mav Noonan, Bryce Turner, Demetrius Bell, Ethan Nation, Ramir Stewart, Ishmael Smith-Flores, Gunnar Gatula, Brock Knutson, and then you go down the list for some low-rate guys. I mean, down the list, Sam Sledge, he's still here. Ives is still here. But, your hit rate is looking like it's less than 50% just in terms of guys staying and lower in terms of guys that end up starting. And that's the reality. The expectations for Nebraska have changed, and what you're able to do on the recruiting trail has changed since you brought in a guy in Dylan Raiola and you have a little excitement around the program. But it's not a banner first recruiting class for Matt Rule. And I think it was never intended to be, but
yeah, I think that happens for most first year, coaches at any institution. Now he got a little bit of a head start because he got hired November 22nd, and it wasn't again during the coaching hiring season after the first of the year. So there was a bit of a head start, but he's coming back from a year off from the NFL, and, learning who players are and putting his staff together. But I think that 50% hit rate is or less is probably common for most coaches when they take over a program. But wasn't Bryce Turner the first commit, the speedy guy out of Houston, and this is going to be the kind of offense, the kind of speed we're going to see for Nebraska? His name stands out to me.
Is he still playing on the offense? I know he put on a ridiculous amount of weight since he's come on, not bad weight, good weight. He looks like a completely different person, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. All I know is I think Bryce Turner and Jeremiah Charles are the same person. They get mentioned in the same breath all the time.
Do you guys expect any shakeup? Maybe a strong word, but another word is options on that back end. There's 400 defensive backs. There's a bunch of safeties. We know there's Buford, there's Singleton, there's Hartzog, and then ... Who? You've got Snow and Butler tag team in that. Butler, of course, is the coordinator now. You went out and got another Georgia kid in Justin Rhett, a name that you look at, all right, good enough to go to Georgia, has left Georgia. Is he somebody? And of course, McCullough with that hybrid spot. I think obviously Nebraska wants to play him as a jack closer to the line. But do you expect some mixing and matching? Do you expect some of those mainstays that have been in Nebraska's secondary at safety spots, the 2 safeties and the rover, to be unseated? Is that a reality? Because some of the guys that have given it to you for a long time they're going to have to fight. I anticipate they're going to have to fight to keep their jobs. At least that's the narrative here. No spot safe.
I think you have to have versatility with the 105. You have to have players that can do more than one-hit wonders in one position only. I think unless you're a great cornerback, you're going to stay at corner.
Right.
I don't see Sierra Wright, having to adjust to play safety. He's going to be a corner, probably going to be a corner at the next level. But, especially on the offensive side, where if you can move Mosey around from a wide receiver to a running back, Harburg from tight end to an H-back type thing. They've got Carter Nelson listed as a tight end. I mean, last year he looked like more of a wide receiver, and then we saw the video of him at the run last week, and he looks like he's bulked up about 30 pounds to more of a true tight end. But I think with the 105, you got to come in looking at people. Do you have the speed? Do you have the size to do two different things defensively, be it a safety or a speedy linebacker or something? Or can you rush the passer from multiple angles as opposed to being just a one slot guy? So with 105, I think it demands that people are multiple in their positions.
Yeah, I'm so that whole this whole conversation, and he's not technically a defensive back. Javen Wright is going to be vital because instead of a safety or a cornerback or somebody matched up on a tight end, and Cincinnati's got an all Big 12 tight end, Javen Wright can take care of that. I think the fact that we're not talking about guys in the back end, and I know they cross-train them, but they're not like, okay, he's going to play both, that they stick him with safety or they say, you're our nickel, you're our rover. I'm fascinated by the cornerback spot because, we don't think Sierra Wright will take a step back. We actually think he'll be better. And you could make a case that he's the best player on this roster right now on July 27th. But look at the competition next to him, where they're not going to get into a situation where Tommy Hill goes down and they're like, what do we do? Now we're screwed. You've got Donovan Jones in the Pinstripe Bowl. Looked fine, played a majority of the snaps. He said, hey, don't forget about me in 25. They love Amari Sanders. Then you've got Andrew Marshall, and then you've got somebody who Bill was alluding to earlier coming back from injury, Bly Hill. I think the cornerback spot opposite Wright, and then it builds depth behind Wright, is an area of strength. I keep saying this. I think the defensive backfield is really good. I think there's some dudes back there. They've got a lot of them. They're going to play a lot of them, and I don't think you'll see much drop-off.
And you won't see Tommy Hill against USC, where and I still don't know why he was playing in that game, but was that out of necessity? They didn't have the depth. I mean, I know Malcolm Hartzog went back from safety to cornerback, but to see Tommy Hill limping through the last 5-6 games of last season did him no service at all. I know they're probably having him out there because they wanted to show somebody that he could still play and should be a draft pick, but he was an absolute liability in that USC game. So there has to be more depth to cover up. If there's an injury, somebody else has to be able to play and not some guy who's on one wheel.
Well, you've got Wright, you have Jones, you have Marshall, you have Hill, you have Sanders, you have Tarver. I mean, that's the list I go through where you've got your two starters on the island outside, and then you've got a guy that you can make a candidate as your nickel or dime package. What's that rotation look like when it's 4 and 5 wide? And do you keep your safeties in, or do you exchange out for guys that are maybe a little better in coverage versus the ability to run stop on a neutral down?
Well, they got enough eyeballs on them to determine who's going to play. I mean, they got the defensive coordinator, Phil Snow, and their position coach. So they had hands-on in the spring of all three of them working with the defensive backs.
Well, and a guy that we hear a lot about too is Caleb Benning, and just a playmaker in high school, and a guy that's come in, and his mentality is pretty high, and maturity is at such a high level. I mean, he's a name that we haven't thrown in the mix there, but he's a name that'll absolutely be in the mix with earning some playing time. And he had a pretty good spring, Sharpie, by all accounts.
Yep, and he's a little bit faster. They've repositioned his weight of his body. I mean, Lob looks really, really good. This conversation is kind of funny, isn't it? Because we haven't even talked about Deshaun Singleton. I mean, but do we talk? We don't talk about him because it's just, hey, we know he'll be fine. We don't have to worry about him. I mean, that's kind of a nice little luxury to have.
Yeah, he's your vet. He's your leader. He's pretty confident. Good to sit down with him at media days, and he and Buford are both pushing for big things,
and very well dressed.
Oh yes.
Guys, as we wind it down here, I do want to ask the question, looking ahead to the first week of fall camp here, we all hear whispers out of fall camp. I'm sure we'll have reports coming in by the time we talk next weekend. What are the things that you want to hear, the things that would encourage you after the first week of fall camp that this team is what we think it can be?
Well, the smoke around Nelson at running back being a home run hitter. So you need to hear something good behind Emmett that first week.
Any of the backups. My two top hits are Nelson and Mosey.
Right. And we'll see. There was nice talk about Ives from time to time, right? So you've got those three guys behind Emmett at running back. Which one impresses and then kind of takes a hold of RB2? That's what I want to hear about. I mean, I'm anxious to see what, peers and other coaches have talked about with Mekhi Nelson, because the guy has an extra gear, it sounds like.
I want to hear that Kevin Gallick has not had his foot stepped on, and that Dane Key and Hunter, first name escapes me, Isaiah are as good as advertised and better than what was advertised last year out of the transfer portal. Jamal Banks, all accounts, nice guy, but did not materialize to be the safety blanket for Dylan Raiola's freshman season. Nayor, okay. we saw some drops that were not the
49ers are loving him in camp, apparently.
But
that catch was legit. That has been shared on social media.
Well, and Fedoni had a great catch too in Giants camp. But I hope that Hunter and Key are as good as advertised and as good as paid, and that will be that will significantly help Raiola, so that it's not all on Ja'Cory Barney. And I hope Mills is as good as advertised too. But I think those two veteran receivers are critical for Raiola's success next year.
It's the first week is interesting because Friday the Big Ten Network starts their tour in Lincoln. So usually when they get to Lincoln, it's a weekend or it's the middle of practice. So they have and Nebraska is not their first stop. So they have some comparisons. Nebraska will be their first stop. So whether you buy into what Howard and Jerry say, that'll also, I believe, the first padded practice. So it'll coincide with the Big Ten Network being here on Friday for the first padded practice. Guys, I hope, because next Sunday, we're going to talk about what we saw the night before, because Nebraska has their open practice. I hope I hear I hope I hear a lot about the offense smoking the defense.
Yep.
I hope I hear that the offense came out and they were clicking, and Dylan is dealing, and Dane Key is a pain in the ass for the defensive backs. The tight ends are going to be a great option because they all have versatility, and Dana knows where to place them, and you ought to see what they're doing with Harburg. I hope the first week is offense. The offensive line looks good. They're starting to gel. That right tackle spot, there's guys jumping in and out of reps, but the five look really good, and that offense is way ahead of where you would think they would in the first week.
Yeah, and to continue your point, Gary, I want to hear that offensive line, we all, I think, heard good things about the offensive line in spring. I want to hear that they have taken that next step through the summer months and that they've picked up where they left off, and they are still that unit that is leading the offense. Pritchett on the left side, it's his more natural side. Does that fix some of the pass blocking issues he had at Alabama? Through the spring, it sounds like they were encouraged by that move back to the left. I want to hear that continue. Is Rocco the vocal leader, the guy that you need in the center of that offensive line? Not the center, but the middle of that offensive line that is kind of setting the tone from in there. Can that offensive line pick up where they left off in the spring and continue taking it to the defensive line? I want to hear that. I also want to note, you talk about the Big Ten tour, Jerry and Howard, it's not their job to come in and say, man, we don't think this team looks very good this year. They don't go anywhere and say that. Their job is to kind of boost up the Big Ten and give all the fans something to be encouraged about looking ahead to the first game of the season. So always keep that in mind whenever those guys come around to town. It is not their job to come in and say, oh boy, it might be a long season here.
Didn't they get enough last week in Las Vegas? But I guess they got to go around and ask the same questions again. TV people. The other thing I'm curious about after that Saturday and on next Sunday or the first week of practice is fill in the blank was held out because of nagging injury. Was limited because I'm not going to harp on Carter Nelson or anybody else that's had an injury that they're coming off, well, we just limited Teddy because of this, or Cork because of this, or are there guys that as camp begins still not 100%?
Soft tissue free 2025.
Right. Because if they're still not at full speed when camp begins, are they ever going to be full speed?
Is the only guy Corcoran?
I don't. Carter Nelson with it.
Carter Nelson's good.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. We hear that, but is there going to be? Well, yeah, there's that fill in the blank, still a little limited. I'm curious as to what the spin's going to be.
I don't think you guys were out there and Rule didn't. He touched on a couple of injuries. I don't think there's anybody that is not starting fall camp, right?
I haven't heard that.
Like Alvano is good to go. All the kickers are good to go.
That's what I'm waiting to hear.
Yeah. There is a slight difference in my eyes from being full go from the athletic trainers and the medical side of things and being a full go from actually what you are as an athlete point of view. There's a slight difference there. So I'll be curious to hear. Like a Gunnar Gatula, he's a full go for camp. Is he athletically a full go coming back from that shoulder surgery? Did he take the necessary steps from an off-season conditioning point of view to be ready to go for fall? That's a question that I have.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think I like him at the right tackle spot. I know Matt Rule was singing the praises of Tyler Canuck, but I like what Gunnar Gatula can bring there. If he's a full go athletically, took necessary steps this offseason, I still pencil him in as the right tackle, despite what Matt Rule says about Tyler Canuck. And we'll see. Maybe Canuck took more steps this offseason than I am privy to know. But like those are the type of questions that I have. Like medically, they can be a full go. Are they actually confident? Does it still look the same on the field as what it did last year?
Yeah.
Bill Doleman, Gary Sharp, Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt. It is the Sunday Live Average Joe Sports Show. Be back at it next Sunday, with a whole full week of camp to recap and talk about. Catch Sharpie, of course, on Matt and Gary and Matt. Sorry about that. Gary and Matt, weekday mornings on the Zone at 6 a.m. Find us on the Average Joe Sports Show at 4 weekdays over on KFOR. And, of course, 7 days a week with you on the Average Joe Sports Show. YouTube, subscribe, Twitter, AJ Sports Radio, AJ Sports Pod. And, fellas, we'll roll our sleeves up. We'll get our inaugural Mike Eckler Ultimate Warrior tribute face masks and eye black. Maybe we'll show up next Sunday with the Eckler mask going.
Or a Hulk tribute.
Or just bring the Mike Eckler energy.
Sure.
you got to be careful with that face paint. You might get canceled. You got to be careful.
Wow. Duly noted. On that note, we are going to go crawl away.
It got quiet fast. No one's going to laugh at that one.
The Mike Eckler thing has to work 2.0 in his return, because he texted a video of Johnny Rodgers to Matt Rule when they began the conversation if they were going to hire him or not. It has to work. People put out like, hey, blessed to have this offer from Nebraska. And the next thing you know, it's a Omaha North wide receiver that's really cool. They got a picture of Johnny Rodgers.
Mm-hmm.
You had a special teams guy that did a video clip in a text message to Matt Rule. It's got to work. I mean, and also because I know you guys will get to practice tomorrow. Some of us will be on the air. The energy of Mike Eckler on the field.
It's true. And you better match it or you get to watch, right? Simple enough.
It's here. Hammer the over 7.5.
That's right. We had Mikey Mike in this chat talk about 90+% are on that over 7.5 apparently. When it comes to
I don't like that.
You don't?
I don't like it whenever everyone is on one number, because as I've said before, the casinos in Vegas are that large for a reason. They don't tend to take big losses. Sometimes they do, but they usually are pretty good about not.
Yeah. We'll be back at you next time with the Average Joe Sports Show Sunday Live. Take care. Talk again soon. Thanks for tuning in.